Okay, guys, in the interest of time, we are going to get started. So welcome, good afternoon. For those of you who are the first time in the Video Center seminar room, welcome. We found the place here in Foy. We moved to Foy from the library in September, and one of the things that we always had wanted to do was to have our own seminar space, because we used to have a nice conference room up in the library, which held about 12 people, but we could never do this, flexible furniture, rearrange it whichever way we wanted to, kind of the space, so we've been working on that. So we did some renovations to this space. There was actually a wall here, moved everything back. And so now it's this, it can be in a U shape for seminars, and then we just decided this shape seems to work well for some of our workshop events. So we have, sort of an exciting lineup today, the best kind, where we have faculty presenters. And I'm just going to say a few things about the Breeden Grant process. I think we have one member of the Senate Teaching Effectiveness Committee here. Those are the people who actually will be evaluating our proposals. So now you can put a face with your anonymous reviewers, right? And the history of the Breeden. Let me talk just for a second. Jim Grocha is on his way back from Saudi Arabia, so he usually does this part of the presentation. But the Breeden grants came about because of the generosity of a former Auburn faculty member, Daniel Breeden. And he basically made an endowment that provides the funding for this continued, great service to Auburn faculty. So something for you guys to plan for your wills, for the name, whatever endowed grant, after your name when you retire, and we'll be happy to administer that for you as well. Okay? Anyway, so the way that it works is there's two major categories of grants, and you will hear about them today. I think we have some people here presenting, talking about travel awards, and some people in the slightly larger category, instructional projects. The Teaching Effectiveness Committee last year actually kind of decided to do a split in terms of the awards. And awards used to be only $3,000, but there was a one flat category. And then just given the kinds of proposals that were coming in, they felt that it was a better use to really allow those people who had greater needs in terms of an instructional project impacting large number of students to be able to have a different category. Okay. Important things you need to know are the applications are due March 15th. Okay. The original intent in terms of who could apply for these was sort of tenured or tenure track or tenure eligible faculty from any discipline, including people with clinician appointments, okay, so full-time clinical appointments. And then last year, since Auburn started to hire people with full-time lecturer type titles, okay, so now many departments have these full-time lecturers who are on multi-year contracts beyond just a part-time adjunct. We've added that to the PI category as well. Okay. But all other contingent faculty, so somebody like myself, I'm in a non-tenure track faculty position. I can't apply for a Breeden directly. Okay? So I have to partner up with a full-time, regular, real faculty member to be able to apply for one. Okay? But, and the committee debated this time, right, Don? So Don's the chair of the Senate committee that's going to be looking over these grants. We debated how to include as many people as we possibly could who were going to have an impact on student learning here at Auburn. That's the ultimate goal. And contingent faculty, I put the language in somewhere. Yeah, contingent faculty can apply, but they just need to do a collaborative effort with another full-time faculty member, which means that you do all the work and they put their name on it, which is okay, right? I mean, you got to get started somehow. That's how I got my Breeden grant. I did all the work, and the music department chair put her name on it. We got the money, so it worked. Use of funds. You're going to hear about various kinds of uses of funds from the participants themselves, so I'm not going to go more into that. There is a final report that's required, but even more than the final report. The final report's a piece of paper, but what I really want to encourage you guys as well as future participants to think about is that we are actually going to do, starting this year, in fall, as part of new faculty orientation, we're going to launch something called Celebration of Teaching, okay, targeted at old faculty or returning faculty. Because every fall we've done stuff for the new faculty and the new GTAs coming in, and then other people have complained, well, you know, I've been here for a couple of years and I never get invited to something new at the beginning of the year. And at the beginning of the year, I want to be renewed and reinvigorated as well. So you'll be hearing from us, those of you who have awards. We're going to do some combination of maybe a poster session plus some interactive sessions to for the returning faculty. Okay. You guys can read the application procedures as well as I can. We want everything PDF. It's all been electronic. So Imad Mansour, one of our graduate assistants here, has set up a Qualtrics survey form, so now you can submit the entire thing as one PDF. Signatures are required, but you can scan and attach those that way. And March 15th, so the end of spring break, basically, is our deadline for getting these things in. In terms of the types of things that you should have in your proposal, clearly under the instructional merit, you should make the argument for why your grant should be funded, especially for the instructional emphasis ones. Linking it to course outcomes, or student learning outcomes, description of the number of students being impacted. These will all be very useful information for the committee. And then for the travel ones, where the travel grants are really about professional development of the individual faculty members, you want to show essentially the derivative effect, right? How will the professional development that you receive in a travel grant be beneficial to your students in the kinds of courses that you teach, in the mentoring that you do, whatever the activities might be. So those are the kinds of things you want to emphasize. The timeline, it's supposed to be something that's completed between May 1st and April 30th of the following year, but that's one that we work with you on. Okay, very often we'll get, you're supposed to go to some workshop as part of a travel grant, and then some family circumstance happens and you cannot go that year. And so we give people extensions all the time. So look, it's a once-a-year summer, 3-week workshop that you wanted to go to improve yourself, and then you can't do it this year because XYZ happened. Can I defer essentially my award? And we have enough flexibility within the budget that we're able to do that year to year. Usually, 10% of the money is in that flex category. Assessment's always important, so kind of put a little bit of thought into, how will I know if my project has achieved its objectives? And, especially this time, the committee is very interested, especially for the instructional effectiveness grants. Will it impact other people? Can other people adopt the approach that you've taken? Maybe in other departments, maybe your colleagues. How can this spread in a more systematic fashion beyond just what you are doing? And then, standard budget thing. Because no one's ever applied for a professional development opportunity on a cruise, right? Because cruises that have really great professional development opportunities. I'm just thinking about the budget category. That might be an interesting one. Came up. So okay. I will stop right there. The form is pretty simple. The main thing that we ask for here is that you get a department head signature. Okay. It's especially for young untenured faculty. We want to make sure that your department head knows what you're doing and in fact values what you're doing and gives you the credit for doing this. Right? So those are the main things. So, Don, do you want to add anything at this point before I turn it over to our presenters to give us a little bit of color in terms of what... Sorry?
I don't know what I can add.
Okay.
I can add and entertain questions.
The timeline of kind of sometime in April they'll get to know, right? Probably we're going to shoot for by mid-April, right? Or depending on when we get the committee together, get the awards out. Any immediate questions on the procedural stuff that I've talked about at this point? Let me take 2 more minutes then and just kind of share, for the first time ever, we're actually sharing the selection rubric with you. So this is something that you guys did not have the advantage of, but this year, under Don's leadership, the committee's been very active in really looking at this and working on it hard. And so the main thing that you want is there's credit, especially for, I see some people from our new faculty scholars program here. If you've not been a previous recipient, or if you're early career pre-tenured, you get that's 5 points out of 50. That's a 10% boost, essentially, okay, in terms of your scores. Okay, so that's now been, officially there. And then the big chunk of the points all come in the instructional merit category. And this is all on our website. If you just go to the biggest on our website, look under Breeden Awards, this rubric, we've tried to be as transparent as possible and actually publish the rubric for you. So thanks to the committee for kind of pushing us in that direction to do that. So, clear impact on faculty members, students, and department, number of students and courses involved. What's new and innovative about either what you as a person are going to learn in your personal travel, or if you're bringing speakers here, what's going to be new and innovative about those activities? And then, is there impact of the project beyond the period of the grant? Is your grant something that could provide a seed for an NEH proposal, NIH proposal, NSF proposal, okay? NEA proposal? And then this is sort of a slightly new category. Does the idea have potential to be adopted by other instructors? Because we really want to see the impact of the Breeden cut across the campus. Okay, so there might be somebody in pathobiology who could use something that people in foreign languages have done. Okay, there might be a core idea there, and don't mind. I mean, I once got a grant from the state of Virginia with an English professor. Okay, and I'm a physicist, and we went after basically science literacy through learning science and reading skills, right? And we got $100,000 for a year in the state of Virginia for that. So these things can happen. Okay, so that's the main thing I wanted to emphasize in the actual scoring rubric, procedures and timeline, assessment and dissemination, and then the budget. So those are small change, a few points each, but they all are important in terms of being addressed by your proposal. But then the big one is just make a really good argument for why this is a great idea and how it will help Auburn students. I'm waiting the appropriate 7 seconds for anyone to formulate a question and needs to write. Always modeling good teaching. It's getting uncomfortable. Jay, do you think that's uncomfortable? All right. Okay, so let me turn it over to my esteemed colleagues. Veena, since you were here first, you want to go first?
Sure.
Okay. All right. Is this that one's yours? Yes. Yes, we can. There you go. Get out of your way.
Good afternoon, everybody. I'm Veena Chaudhury from the Department of Consumer Design Sciences, College of Human Sciences. We got an instructional enhancement grant from Breeden for $4,000, and the title of our proposal was Incorporation of Pen-Based Digital Drawing Tools in Apparel and Interior Design Instruction for Effective Design Communication. Our department, just generally, our department houses both the apparel design and the interior design program, and both of which had a need for pen-based tools in design communication classes. And we didn't have any source of monies for buying this for our students, and so Breeden was the right opportunity for us. The purpose is, the project is aimed to incorporate the use of pen-based digital drawing tools in studio instruction and apparel design and interior design courses at Auburn University. The project proposed to use all the Breeden funds to purchase these pressure-sensitive stylus pens and tablets for student use. So all the money went towards buying the pens and tablets. The digital pens will also be used in recruitment, outreach, summer camps targeted to high school students. We wanted to use it beyond just our classrooms and in our outreach programs as well. The instructional enhancement offers the potential to improve critical student learning outcomes related to the technical and aesthetic quality of digital drawings. And those are the two outcomes we were measuring in our assessment. This project responds to strategic priorities 1, 2, 5 of the Auburn University Strategic Plan. Don't ask me what they are right now. It's written up in my proposal, but if you need it, I'll give it to you. The programs and courses that were affected, like I said, the department houses both the apparel design and interior design programs, so both were affected by this enhancement. And we had 2 apparel design introductory, 2 courses in apparel design, 1 an introductory studio course where it was incorporated, which was design communication with 24 students, and an advanced studio course in apparel design, which is portfolio development for 24 students. In interior design, again, there was an introductory studio course, 2100, where the technology was incorporated, and that was visual presentation interior design, 26 students, and an advanced studio course in interior design, residential interiors for 22 students. So it impacted 4 courses. We assessed the project in 2 of the introductory courses. We also plan to do the advanced courses assessment this fall. So I don't know, maybe we may continue the project, but we did the assessment of the introductory classes last fall. The project assessed the effectiveness on the critical learning outcomes in the 2 introductory classes, 2100 and 2740, one from interior design, one from apparel design, with respect to facilitating the technical and aesthetic quality of the digital drawings. And apparel and interior design students completed equivalent digital drawing exercises using a mouse, which is the media that they currently use, and using a digital pen, which is the new media that we incorporate through this grant. And following this, they completed a survey on their experience in using the tools to achieve the technical and aesthetic quality of the digital drawings. We are yet to analyze the results, and we are also going to have a panel of experts look at the outcomes produced from the mouse and the digital drawing tools to compare which is better in technical and aesthetic quality. So that's the assessment, and like I said, we want to do this also for we learned something from the assessment that we did with the introductory classes. We want to make some changes and implement it with the advanced student classes. Project timeline. We've completed the first 3 items, which is place the order and get the pens. The first thing we did, Breeden worked really effectively. We could get the pens as soon as we got the monies. We applied for IRB approval to do the assessment studies, and that was very immediately granted with no edits. And then we incorporated the main thing was, of course, planning to incorporate it in the curriculum, planning the assessment as part of the student activity, and all of that, and conducting the assessment in the 2 courses. We've done all of that. We're yet to analyze the assessment data, prepare and submit conference papers, which we do plan to do, make a department seminar presentation to kind of inform other faculty on what we did, and other faculty can use this approach. And we also plan to submit manuscripts for publication and a final report to BQ. I think that's my 5 minutes.
All right. Any quick questions for Veena while we set up? And we are recording all of these, so if you have some colleagues who couldn't make it today, we're going to make it available through the BT Center website. We're archiving and optimizing all of these presentations. Carly? Is that good?
Good afternoon. I'm Carla Bell. I'm actually a non-tenure track professor, and I worked with Becky Ratzlaw. She's a community planning professor in her seminar class to actually introduce this new teaching approach to architecture and planning. We submitted a proposal to Breeden called Documentary Films, Divas Against All Odds, documenting invisible voices in architecture. Let me tell you a little bit about myself. I started teaching architecture in 1993 in Tuskegee. And when I was teaching architecture history, we found that there was very little African American architects that were represented in architectural books. So my students and I took it upon ourselves to do some research about African American architects, and we found a lot of research that were not in traditional architecture history. So we found out that out of 140,000 licensed architects, there are only 1% that are African American, and only 289 are African American females. So these women are minorities groups are very underrepresented in architecture. So those are the actual data. We also, while doing some research, we decided to do some research on Booker T. Washington and his teaching approaches. And in the 1930s, we found that the first African American woman started a career in weaving. They could not practice architecture in those days. So we found that Booker T. Washington, because of his teaching approach, his cognitive teaching approach, apprenticeship approach, that was a catalyst for omitting minorities and women in the architecture and construction profession. So the first phase of the project, when I was at Tuskegee, probably 3 years from that, when I was doing some dissertation research, I submitted a proposal to the Grant Foundation, and that was the first phase of this project. And what I wanted to do was kind of wanted to interview these women architects and their perspectives and attitudes on the architecture profession, and if they were, isolated or felt marginalized or stereotyped or discriminated against in the architecture and construction profession. So these are the first three ladies that we received money, well, I received money at Tuskegee to do, was Norma Scalari, which was the first African-American architect to be licensed. Unfortunately, she is passed last year, so she's not able to actually benefit and see the actual documentary film that we're going to have, and hopefully next year we'll be complete with that film. Also, Sharon Sutton, she's a professor at University of Washington, and then Allison Williams is a professional at AI in California. So the second phase of the project, which is this phase, is what Becky and I decided to do. We implemented Catherine Anthony, and we Skyped with her over the phone, and we had our students to interview her over the phone. And we basically asked her the same questions that we asked the first three women. And Catherine is one of my very good friends, and she helped me with my dissertation and helped me with the process. And she's basically one of the #1 women gurus in architecture education. So I wanted her to talk with our students about architecture education. So after we came up, we had 8 hours of interview film, and doing this instructional enhancement project in this seminar class, we actually had 8 hours of film, and we came up with themes. Race and gender, the profession, academic background, and architecture education. Norma Scalari, she was talking about, she had 2 of the themes, and this is one of her descriptions of the profession. I coached the architecture license exam, and when I coached this exam, I helped these women and minorities to become licensed architects. And then also, one of her things in architecture education was that Eisenhower actually signed her diploma. And Sharon Sutton also talked about race and gender, and she said after she was teaching 31 years, and she's only taught out 2 African American females in 31 years. And she said that she was, one lady was from Detroit and the other lady was from Chicago. And so she also talked about the lack of diversity and the social equity in the architecture profession. And she also said that at that time when she started teaching, there were only 626 African licensed women. Now there's 1,600 women. And at that time, she was the 7th black woman in the AIA. And Allison Williams talked about her background in art, and that her Berkeley degree in art helped her to understand the built environment. And she also talked about that she worked around black professionals, that she knew that they probably would not become partners in that profession, in that firm. And then the results from this is that we're going to actually, we're going to work with the film director, and we're going to create a 4-minute trailer for these perspectives, and we're going to actually view this at the Multicultural Center Watch and Learn Film series this year. So that's it.
Fabulous. Thank you very much. So you notice two very different kinds of projects we've heard from already. Vina's, where they were taking an existing curriculum, introducing a technological innovation, right, and really expanding how that worked. And then Carla's is amazing. There's years and years of background work that goes into it, and then at the end comes out a 4-minute film. Right? And then, but all the work that goes into that. Jay, you want to go next? Yes, question?
What did the Breeden Grant actually fund from the...
It's going to fund the 4-minute trailer.
Okay, so paying someone the time to edit that?
The edit, the process, yes, all of that.
Is it a grad student or is it someone outside?
Well, the grad student worked with the grad student the grad student is my grad assistant, and she actually went in and found the themes, and then with the producer is charging us to do this 4-minute. And I think it's going to take the whole 4,000.
So we have something called MPG on campus, Media Production Group. So Bruce Curtin and John DiGiulio, they make like Hollywood movies or PBS movies.
Yeah.
So they are full production studio, green screening and all that stuff. So you get a high quality film, really. They're about film, but they come with the appropriate price tag.
What did you say the name of the office was?
MPG. Yeah. All right. Any others? Quick questions?
Hello, my name is Jerry Mitchell and I am from Community Planning Program in CADC. I used this Breeden Grant for undertaking this advanced course which was offered in Zaragoza, Spain. This is one of the top agriculture university there in Mediterranean. But they had a course which had a very unique structure where they were using GIS and statistical techniques together. And in my program, I teach both of these courses, and I thought this would be a great opportunity for me to learn. So I essentially, through this Breeden Grant, I went and traveled for 2 weeks, attended this course. It was really intense than I actually thought in the beginning when I wrote the proposal. So it combined these two things, and it essentially covered, the grant covered 2 components, the travel component and the course registration fee itself, which was about $1,200, $1,500, I guess. So total funding I received was about $3,958 from Breeden, and then we used some of the department funding to back it up. And this is probably useful for those who are applying now. I actually followed exact proposal structure that was given and started putting in information about how and what this Breeden Grant can serve its purpose and my purpose. So how can I pass whatever I learned eventually towards teaching? I provided some of the annexures which I thought were very useful, and I'll come to that. I provided syllabus of my course that I was teaching before Breeden Grant and what I plan to do once I come back. And I'm happy to share that I was successful in changing some of it. So I have added some fun visuals. You might want to delete if it goes on online.
I have a question. What's in the duty free?
What's in the duty free bag? That was your present, didn't you, Diane?
So
It never came home.
never came home.
The good part of this whole grant was I combined both the things, hard learning and hard fun also. So I extended my trip after that, which I'll also share, which also eventually ended up in my teaching. So here I arrived at Zaragoza, and this is when we check into this program, and there were like several people from different countries. So I've got 31 participants from 19 countries, and there were 7 instructors who came from all over, including people from United States. So this was a very, very versatile type of a group. There were people who were agriculture scientists, there were people with soil scientists. Now I'm coming from from architecture and city planning background. So I was, in the beginning, I was like little worried that am I in the right place? And then I found that this was really a multidisciplinary approach that they were taking in the teaching. So here are some of the sessions which were going on, very intense. They'll start from morning or 8 o'clock and go all the way till 5. Some more, you can see I'm confused because it's really intense. But whatever, and now we are happy because it's done 2 weeks. And in the end, I also extended a little bit to see out what's there in Spain. So this was especially more useful for my architecture planning and design related work. So I traveled to Madrid, I traveled to Barcelona, I traveled to Zurich, I traveled to, on my own, to Geneva. Now, so besides the fun part, what were the funding outcomes? It gained me 2 ways. One is my personal professional gain because I built some capacity in myself, and then I passed the same thing to
Smart
touch screen.
Smart, yeah.
So these are some of the personal gains and professional gains that I made, and here are some gains which I passed on. So I added a small module in my current course, which in my fall course, where I combine what I learned into my teaching. Here are some results which I can quickly show. They are now online also. So we actually worked with the city of Montgomery in carrying out some of their work. Let's see if it comes out. So we put together a study for understanding how city actually functions, looking at the entire city of Montgomery. And these are some of the work that student generated, which I believe came a lot from my teaching, from my learning in that program. Because it has GIS and it also use all those statistical techniques to build these three-dimensional models in GIS. So there are some of these things which are here. I'm still working on, I do not have outcome to show as part of my research, but some of these things will also eventually reflect in my research work. So here are some still visuals of that, some of more, and here is the change that I actually suggested and some of the changes that I actually made. So this is my older syllabus, and this is how I changed and modified. So I actually moved some of those, created space for new modules, and inserted that little piece in my modified syllabus. One thing which was important, I know Breeden Grant helped me a lot, but this money was not enough because of the travel component and cost of living in Europe. So department put some support, and then I was able to achieve this. In the budget, I also had very clear things. Because my particular grant was not really travel grant. It was not only just the instructional grant. It was a sandwich grant. So I broke the whole thing into 2 components, explaining how the sandwich thing works. And I think that was very clear. So I want to thank you, Bigio, and I want to thank Breeden for letting me do this.
Thank you. Excellent. Any questions for Jay while I set up the next one? Yeah.
So the travel grant is $2,000, right?
Yeah, yes.
And so by putting both of them, you were able to go for the $4,000 funding.
I had to put in some departmental support on that.
Okay.
But I basically tried for $4,000.
Okay. And so that's by the instructional component and the travel component.
Because the fee itself was $1,500 to participate in the training program.
Okay, Tracy and Tim, you guys going to go up next?
Okay, so
One of you? Okay, all
we
right.
don't have a presentation.
Okay, just, you don't want to standing up here, and then you can. Otherwise, my camera guy will give me a hard time. I'm not up here. Okay. by the podium, yeah, wherever you want, okay.
Okay, so we applied for and received a $4,000 grant from Breeden, and what we wanted to do was bring OPI and ACFL testing technology to our foreign language department, because we have, how many languages? I should have counted. We have multiple languages in our program, and we wanted a way that we could talk across languages about what our students were achieving. And right now, we have a capstone, so when our students graduate at the end of 4 years of 4 years bachelor, we have a way of assessing their communication skills, but we found that they weren't really, it wasn't really satisfactory because it tends to be fairly subjective, right?
Yeah.
So ACFL and the ACFL scaling OPI assessment tool are sort of nationally recognized tools, and so it's also very expensive technology, I mean, like anything else we're having. So we use the $4,000 and then some departmental money to bring the workshop to Auburn.
A little bit about ACFL. It's a scale, and it's not only based on linguistic ability, but also functions. So it's more objective in the sense that if I have a student that is superior, the student will be able to communicate with accuracy and fluency in order to participate fully and effectively in conversation on a variety of topics, okay? So instead of concentrating on, okay, this student can conjugate this verb, yes, no, okay, this is good, okay, A. We know what we're looking for. Is the student able to communicate in these topics? Am I able to understand the student without any interpretation? Okay, then the student will be superior. Okay, is the student able to discuss abstract topics? The student will be superior. Okay, so we're moving away from yes, okay, yeah, you look, yeah, more or less.
That sounds really good to me, right?
Yeah, okay, A. Okay, to a more objective, across languages way to measure the students. Okay, and it has 4 levels: has superior, advanced, intermediate, and novice. Okay, and all of them are based on these functions. What the student can do with language, not only using language, but how the student can communicate at our level.
And so that would be the capstone aspect of it. So we hope to eventually have all of our key faculty people who are in that position, like who assess the students' language at the end of their program. But we also were concerned with our students who are graduating who want to go on to become teachers. So not Alabama necessarily, but other states have certain requirement as to the level of language that teachers need to have before they're allowed in the classroom. So this also is a tool to give our graduates and seniors in the undergraduate, but also we have a graduate program in Spanish, to give them really accurate assessment about where their language ability lies. And so that's another concern of ours in the program. And then the last thing we were sort of going for,
is to increase the overall articulation across languages. Okay. So in other words, just teaching German and teaching Spanish, I'm able to communicate with her using the same criteria.
right.
So we can build a program that is cohesive across languages.
Right, because I mean, not that you all would know this, but in teaching foreign language, it often tends to be divided into the first 2 years of language, where you're supposed to become fluent at the end of 2 years, and then you go on to do all of the literature and the content courses in the upper level. And this obviously doesn't work often very well, and some students, they get lost in that gap between the first 2 years and the second 2 years. So this is but with this way of assessing, we can sort of have more of an accurate idea of where our students are in upper level classes and give them tasks that can actually help them advance. Right. I don't know how we're doing.
So your Breeden grant then brought the workshop here, and
Yes.
all the faculty got trained, or what happened exactly? Tell us
No,
about
very
that.
good
Let's
question.
skip that.
Yeah, we'll skip that part, sorry. No, there are two sort of parts that we're thinking of with this. The first part was to train to become a tester, an OPI tester. It's very intensive, and so the workshop was only allowed to have 10 faculty members. That was the maximum. And so we had 9, and so that was the first part of the program that the first part of what we planned to do. Then that would be our second grant proposal, which we're going to do, would be for the entire faculty, and that's because that's up to 25. Because this method of assessment can actually have a huge impact on how teachers teach their courses. Because if you're sort of teaching to what students can actually do, that's different than sort of teaching from the textbook, right? Okay, so I'm in the 3rd semester, and my students should be able to do what it says they should do in my textbook here. But it always needs to be sort of grounded in what you're hearing the students produce. And that sometimes, without a method of accurately assessing that, it's easy to sort of lose sight of that. So that's the second part of our second phase of our plan.
And it was a 4-day workshop.
Yes.
And you guys had some
Weekends.
scheduling issues, I remember vaguely that we had to work with you on scheduling, so.
Yes,
Yes.
yeah. And we now have two of the people who are in the program are going on to be certified OPI testers, and then others are going to do it at a later date, because there's sort of a time, you have to sort of time it correctly, so we're going to stagger those a little bit.
Then this semester also we're going to offer a workshop for the rest of the faculty on what we did and why it's important to get them ready for the workshop we want to present next spring to the whole faculty.
Yeah, maybe we should have had a PowerPoint, sorry.
That's all right.
Yeah. But any,
Those are the main points, then, yeah. So instructional enhancement grant.
yes.
But in this case, bringing somebody from the outside to do a workshop for operating faculty here, right?
And the costs did very much exceed the grant, but our department was very generous in matching some funds.
And with the 5 or 6 languages, were you able to get coverage from all the languages?
Yes, actually, yes.
In your 9, that's
Yeah.
great. Okay,
Yes.
that's fabulous.
We have Spanish, German,
Italian,
Italian,
French,
Chinese.
and Chinese.
But we have one representative per language
Right.
in the workshop.
Okay. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you very much. What's that?
I have a slide PowerPoint. So I'm a junior faculty from the Department of Foreign Languages and Literature, just like Tracy and Hilda. And there is a dialogue between my project and theirs, and I actually was part of the workshop, and my project benefited from their project. So we offer a minor in Italian in the department, and I'm very proud to say that the program is growing each passing year, and we managed in the last few years to offer up to 8 courses at the elementary level, and they all have very high enrollment, between 25 and 30 students each. So we are very enthusiastic and proud, but at the same time we understand that the problem is that students don't have, not all students in our classes have the ability to contribute to class discussion, since the class is very large. So my project is called Italy for Beginners, and it's a set of 6 instructional videos to be used as homework assignments in elementary Italian 1 and 2. It's a 1-year course that covers the basic of Italian language and culture. And the main advantage is that the video responses optimize time for the instructor and also the students, and they also provide a way to involve students into real-world task situations they might encounter when they go to the study abroad. And also they encourage collaboration with a partner. So before we had a different assignment that was not fulfilling our needs. There was a dictation style assignment. Students were listening to a text that was read, and they had to record their own voice and repeat the same text. And we realized that they were not understanding the meaning of what they were saying, so the cultural context was missed completely. And so here, we're hoping, since we haven't implemented yet, we're hoping that they become active participants, because after watching the video, it's a 2-minute video for each chapter, they go through different activities, just traditional questions testing the listening comprehension, and then they had to act out a skit in 2, and they have to manipulate the video for their own performance. They have to recreate something similar. And so they become more active participants, and so they place themselves in the situation, in other words. And so, so in the brief 2-minute clip, the video clip incorporates culture. It helps develop listening comprehension, elicits speaking, and the use of vocabulary and grammar that has been covered in a specific unit. And just to give you an example, for example, there is a situation that takes place in a hotel, and a college student walks in and has to make a reservation, and there are some humorous misfortunes in the video happening to him. And then, for example, he forgets his wallet, he ends up booking the most expensive room, but then in the end he manages to make his reservation by talking to the hotel receptionist. And so, in other words, through the video is presenting different type of lodging possible that you can find in Italy, the necessary vocabulary, reservation, single room, double room, the grammatical structure of the conditional tense, I would like to, and this is for elementary 2, so second semester. And so all these aspects follow the chapter in the textbook, but there are also additional cultural information. For example, the idea that in Italy we don't tip people, we don't leave a tip for in a hotel or a restaurant, for example. And so this method of working with a partner and recording a skit on the computer through Canvas can help our students to prepare for oral exams since they are frightened to speak to the instructor most of the times.
And what did you spend the money on?
The money was spent, the fund was spent completely in the shooting and post-production of the videos.
And did you hire outside help to do that, or you?
Yes, it was a company in Italy, so that the setting was culturally authentic.
Okay. Great. Bring Italy to Auburn, right? Essentially. Thank you very much. So that's all we have on the presentation side. Questions for any of the panelists? Questions for me? Questions for our colleagues from the Teaching Effectiveness Committee? Don, you want to say anything?
I wasn't prepared to make some comments, but I will.
Sure.
Yeah. You want me to come up there?
Yeah, come up there.
Just some observations from the presentations, and I want to make some comments. But one in particular, I just want to recognize the Video Center for what they do in administering this program and so many other things that really, since its beginning, has made an impact on our campus for teaching and teaching effectiveness. I really appreciate what Raj has done with this program as well. I just want to share a little bit. I was on the committee last year, and so we went through this exercise to give you a little bit of a glimpse so you can appreciate maybe some perspectives. It's about a 15-member committee, but some people need to excuse themselves out of the review process. So we kind of get triaged down, and we'll probably keep it as anonymous as we can in the grant materials to sort of strip out certain things and so forth. But members of this committee, just kind of envision, this is made up of people from all over the campus. Right? So by design, we're very diverse in departments and disciplines. And so when you write your proposal, it may make total sense, and you're using the vernacular and language, and you assume that or what the definition, implied definition or meaning is. You may have a member or a couple members on this committee that are really from a different discipline, and so there can be a potential little bit of a disconnect. So it's really up to you to articulate and communicate or message some details, important details about your discipline as it relates to the proposal that you're writing. So I want to mention that. So clarity is a big thing, I think. If we've done some things this year that will probably help a lot in terms of objectifying the review process and so forth. But we have the possibility that someone may have made an error, or could be typographical. Little things can make a big difference when they're all so good, just like these from the past year. And so the committee then starts to get into a practice of almost nitpicking and say, well, they didn't do this and then they didn't do that. And so we've got to be very careful about that. And I'm not saying it's going to happen, but my experience on other national review panels and so forth, that can kind of take place. So I just want to encourage you to watch your details to the point, even though it's in some disciplines this is a small amount of money that you're requesting, but it's it can make a big difference in your career and in your program, for your department, and so forth. We're looking for good ideas. I mean, that's my opinion. I'd say any kind of grant, if you've been on a panel, review panel, good, strong ideas. Is there a question? Is there a problem that needs to be resolved? And particularly from a teaching perspective, learning enhancement, learning outcome perspective. So so you make sure you articulate and identify that, in my opinion. Something that's going to help us in some pedagogies, strong linkages for impact, and I think that's going to be a key thing. But they're all going to be good, strong proposals. So it's a very competitive process, and so we're assigning some people to have primary responsibility over some proposals, although we might have 30, maybe, I don't know. Is it about,
Seems to vary.
Seems to vary some, but let's say it's 25 to 30 proposals, and so everyone will read these, be familiar with them, but certain members of the committee will be assigned a primary reviewer, some will be a secondary reviewer, and so as we enter into discussion, it's kind of luck of the draw, but that primary reviewer is going to be the one that sort of is your advocate, and so that's the way the review panels kind of work. So, but don't be disappointed, don't be discouraged if it doesn't happen for you this year. It doesn't mean that your idea wasn't a great one, your proposal wasn't really strong, so it wasn't meritorious, but sort of set your goals really high and shoot for them. So I compliment the presenters today. It was a really great job, some good work. Any questions?
Thank you, Don. Yeah, any questions?
Do you find that including some element of fancy new technology helps their funding, or can you make an argument for the kind of best practices?
I can't answer that because I think a lot of that is going to, I think there's going to be intrinsic merit to the idea, but then it's the reviewers, right?
Yeah.
If reviewers don't like fancy new technology, then your argument will be less
There's some interesting new technology being used to me, so I was just wondering if that, naturally that's going to appeal.
I think they linked it to student outcomes, right? It was about that the students would learn new techniques, new technologies, and so they made the argument not so much in terms of the technology.
I don't think it was the technology.
Pardon?
I think it was just a good idea.
It was about the good idea, learning, linking it to new and improved student outcomes. That's really where it was.
I was trying to come up with
That's a great question.
on top of
And I don't know that I could answer it any better than what you did. I mean, we had a couple of those last year that the technology, but I think one of them in particular may have had a problem of linking it to a real significant problem or how it was actually going to enhance teaching effectiveness. And so it's probably one that did not, it kind of got triaged out. So technology for the sake of technology is not going to necessarily help you.
We have some grad students here, I know. You guys can go and prompt some professor that you work with, especially if you're a GTA or an instructor of record, to apply for one of these. And, you can be a collaborator with a main professor to try to get one of these for your department. The committee is very open to seeing that kind of thing as well.
And do you encourage a proposal like developing a new elective course?
Very possibly. I mean, I don't think that's
I
out of
don't
the
think
realm.
it'd be restrictive. If you can demonstrate that it's going to make an impact in the educational process, maybe involve a different pedagogy, allow us to collect some data and new insight into something that we're not doing on campus. I think those are all possible.
So like the 5 pages that you mentioned, is that like 5 pages single spacings or double spacings or the font size? because a lot of people would be particular with the font size and the spacing issue.
Let me see, that's a very good question.
Yeah, because I applied undergrad,
Most
that
of them
would
it's
just
5
say
double
that.
space has been the typical thing.
Yeah, that would just say that whether it's double spacing, single spacing, or what kind of fonts that you could use. Because
Okay, most of the people reading them, well, now I think everything's going electronic, so it's not a matter of, yeah. Make it readable is my,
Okay.
Here's
my
my,
suggestion on font size.
and I'll comment. I mean, basically, all 15 of these folks, it's hard to schedule meetings with them because they're so blasted busy. And so they're just like you, very busy, got, scheduled, a lot of things scheduled. And so they're taking a lot of time to read these, and so if you're putting pressure on that by scrunching or on the margins and all, and some people are much more tolerant of those sort of breaches of the requirements, if you will, on font size and so forth. But others, I mean, they take it to the letter, right? And so, it wasn't an inch over here. I mean, they really breached on this, and so it's a kind of a compromise. But I don't know that would throw your proposal out, but I don't think so.
But this size of mine, you should be able to do it in 5 double space pages.
Yeah.
That'll be my recommendation, and nothing smaller than a 12-point font.
Bill, were you going to last year?
No, I wasn't.
Carla, wanted to add something on this?
Yes, I want to just say that this is a very good grant. It's allowed me to have an extended opportunity to do some further research. And I started on a book proposal about a year ago, and I really didn't do very much with it. And this process has helped me to finalize this book proposal. And just Monday, I got a contract Monday from through Rutledge for my book proposal on invisible space unveiled, invisible cultures in the design studio. So this process, all of this will be written in the book. So this really, really helped.
We'd like to hear this story. Okay, we're going to meet our 3 o'clock deadline. Some of us can run to the airport and catch our plane. So, all right, thank you all for coming. Thank you for coming.